Hello and welcome to today's lesson. We're going to learn about the difference between monospaced and variable width fonts. We'll also talk about serif and sans-serif fonts. At the end of the lesson, I'll show you how to display HTML code in the website. I'll use the Windows WordPad editor to show you several basic font styles. Let's start with monospaced and variable width fonts. I'll type the letter M 10 times on the first line. Next, I'll hit Enter and type the letter I 10 times on the second line. I'll set a larger font size so that you can see this more easily. I'm sure you noticed that the letter M is much wider than the letter I. Fonts in which different letters have different width are called variable width fonts. Times New Roman is a good example. Because it's perfectly legible, that font is frequently used in printed texts as well. Let's move on to monospaced fonts. Monospaced fonts differ from variable width fonts in that all of their characters are of the same width. I'll select the whole text and set the font to Courier New, which is monospaced. As you can see, the letter M and I now have the same width. Consequently, both lines have the same length. In the past, monospaced fonts were used by typewriters, but today we rarely use typewriters, so monospaced fonts are not seen very often. Of course, there are situations when using monospaced fonts width can be helpful. One good example would be displaying HTML code in our website. Another way to categorize fonts is to look at the differences between serif and sans-serif. First, I'll demonstrate what a serif font is. I'll delete everything and set the font to Times New Roman. For a clearer illustration, I'll set font size to 140. Next, I'll type M, N, R, and L characters in one line. Notice the short lines stemming from the upper and lower ends of the letters. You can see them here at letter M, or here at letter R. These lines are generally called serifs. Logically, all fonts with such serifs are generally called serif fonts. A good example of a serif font is Times New Roman. Serifs usually make longer texts easier to read, so you'll probably see them very frequently, especially in printed media. Let's move to sans-serif fonts. I'll select the whole text and set the font to Arial. Notice that all the serifs have disappeared and you can no longer see them on the ends of characters. Sans-serif fonts are often used on websites because reading text from a computer monitor is different from reading classic printed media such as books and newspapers. You can see an empty website. I'll show you how to use serif font in practice. Several elements exist for creating serif fonts. However, I've come across only the code element, which is used for displaying source code in a website. Let me show you how it works. I'll paste a line of code for inserting an image between the code opening and closing tag. Let's see how the website looks in a browser. As you can see, the browser interpreted the code and displayed an image. However, we want to see the actual code. The problem is that right and left angle brackets are interpreted as the beginning and the end of a tag. Fortunately, there's an easy solution to this. I'll replace the left angle bracket with ampersand, LT, and a semicolon. This group of characters is called an entity. Entities are usually used for creating special symbols such as the euro symbol or copyright. Next, I'll replace the right angle bracket with a corresponding entity. Now the browser will understand that we want to display the angle brackets and won't interpret them as the beginning and the end of a tag. To demonstrate the sans-serif font effect, I'll copy the line of code outside the code element. After refreshing the browser, we can only see the HTML code. Notice that the second line, enclosed in the code element, is displayed in monospaced typeface. Monospaced text can also be created with the TT, KBD, and sample elements. However, these elements are used very rarely. In this session, I showed you the difference between variable width and monospaced fonts. Also, we talked about serif and sans-serif typefaces. We finished off with a demonstration of the use of entities for displaying HTML code in a browser. Thank you for joining me, and I'll look forward to seeing you the next time.